Now that you mention this, because this is something I did want to ask you about, I've been thinking about. We've heard Dana talk a lot of stuff on boxing and how their model is and how their championship picture is. Is he in danger of making the UFC even worse? I mean, because now guys are fighting for really no reason other than if the pay per view will be popular. From a competitive standpoint, a lot of these matches have no competitive sense whatsoever. Is he in danger of doing the same thing boxing did, or maybe worse?
I think it's two broken systems. At this point, neither system benefits the athlete in their own bent way. In boxing, you have four or six different world titles and world championships that are sort of held in some balance as equal, and there's some credence in trying to get all of them, and you know they have their bizarre structure that sometimes leads to you not getting the fights you want, you know, and the UFC has their own structure that they think they give you the fights you want all the time, but if you're a true purist, like you know, I'm very over McGregor. Like when I wanted the first time Dustin Poirier fought him, I was like, all right, Dustin's going to put an end to this train, And when he fought Eddie Alvarez, I was like, okay, Eddie, hopefully he'll put an end to this train, because he was, and McGregor and Aldo, and McGregor stepped up at every single spot, so he made it inevitable. But at some point, the Diaz loss. I mean, that first Diaz loss is the first blemish. Then he breaks his foot. At this point, there's a lot of bluster, and his best moments are clearly behind him. So we are recycling him, for the money. And at that point, you could put him in. You have your main and co-main events, and then have him as that third spot. They've done well with some, if I remember correctly, UFC 100, they put Henderson and Bisping in that number 3 spot as a match. That's the kind of match that in the 3 spot with McGregor against somebody where he belongs now. But his ego and everything doesn't allow that. Whatever the structure they have, they also keep draws away from each other so that they can maximize their money and things. So there's so much that goes on to keeping McGregor floating. Yeah, I would have spent that on Bilal Muhammad, Rachmaninoff. There you've got Bilal does a good job on social media rather, but you're not a McGregor, and the UFC says they look at that, and yeah,
But I mean, we got four pretty blockbuster matchups coming up in boxing. We got Garcia Davis, Haney Lomachenko, Fury Usyk. We got some big fights coming up, and the UFC's like trying to pull Cubby Covington out of hiding, trying to recycle McGregor, as you mentioned. Is this a little bit of a danger area for the UFC because they're kind of making their title picture look even more unorganized than boxing has?
at the end of the day, those circle charts, you know, there's a good piece of the pie that boxing and MMA share in terms of people watching, especially the big fights. And it's cyclical. Boxing, that complaint is perennial in boxing. We didn't get the fights we wanted. Uh, Terrence Crawford, has he ever, stepped up to fight? What's the kid from Texas?
No,
I'm just gonna
Spence.
Yes, Errol Spence. Has that fight been made? I don't remember
No.
that one happening yet. So it's up and down. Dana is like I said, they have their own way of looking at social media, and they believe that they deliver McGregor versus Covington, that they delivered the match that most people want. And again, I don't think that that's a quite a fair way to look at it, especially from the sport. Like I think if you're gonna do something with McGregor, go ahead and do it, and do something big that you can't do with anybody else. But if you're just going to take him to Vegas again and put him in with Covington and make a lot of noise with two loudmouths, you've actually lost an opportunity. So it depends on what they want to do, because they if they don't dedicate themselves to a big match between McGregor and Leon Edwards in England, it's not going to happen. And again, if they were forward thinking and big thinking, I think that might be the biggest payoff of all the matches on the table for them. But they might say, "Oh, you can't do that." Okay.
Yeah, we also got Benavidez Plant. So I mean, boxing's having a stretch where they're going to have a lot of fights that fans have been asking for. So I think it's interesting that UFC is going this direction, given all the criticism that Dana has given boxing over the years. It seems like boxing's trying to get back more to, giving the fights that people want to see, at least for the time being, for the next few months. And UFC is getting further away from that.
I understand what you're saying. It's spin, because I think, whoever the boxing promoters are, at some point they figured out the way to make money, and this is the way to make money, the most money, and they made the deals. If they don't make the deals, it's because of money. So that's in tune for a little bit, and it'll fall apart again. I think that's the same thing. We predicted a little while. Ngannou's gone. Diaz is gone. McGregor's still here, but Jones is still here. But I felt about 2 years ago that we would see the UFC start to recycle the top shelf. Jones been around for 10 years, and he's still obviously, as a heavyweight, has some shelf life, and that's good. But the guys that they've been concentrating on for the paydays haven't really changed that much. McGregor's been around for a long time now. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they deliver in the next few years. They do need some stars.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to end on, because you are right. They are still kind of recycling guys that have been around for a decade or more, So it's going to be interesting to see how they get through that challenge.
Yeah, and again, we mentioned it on another podcast just really fast, but Ngannou goes off. Ngannou coming back to UFC is still one of the most lucrative things he'll be able to do after that one big payday. So that would be just another recycle, actually extending itself in time and stuff. So, yeah, and the UFC has they'd rather recycle at some point. So there it is.
All right, Miguel. Well, I appreciate taking time out of your day to do another episode with me. And as always, people checking out the MMA Conspiracy Hour. Until next time, take care.